Turn off the lights, my dear friend. Let the darkness in your room gradually envelop you, just as the night slowly draws its giant blanket over the endless prairie. Tonight, I want to take you back to a different place, a different time. The American West in the 1870s. Not the glamorous West of Hollywood movies, not the place where dashing cowboys ride into the brilliant orange sunset, but the real West, harsh, rugged, and filled with the smell of dust, sweat, horse manure, disease, and blood. You open your eyes in a rickety wooden cabin, hastily built from cheap pine boards. Every crack between the planks lets the cold wind seep in. You lie on a damp straw mattress, so hard it feels like your spine is about to break. A tingling itch spreads across your body from the bedbugs and ticks that found you last night. There is no scent of clean, fresh bedding like in modern times. Only the smell of rotting straw, sweat soaked into the fabric, and the faint, lingering odor of wood smoke. In the winter, the waste freezes into a grayish block, but the smell still hangs in the wind. You learn to breathe shallowly as you pass by, trying to ignore it, but you still feel suffocated. In the West, foul smells are a part of life, just like the sound of horse hooves or the howling wind. And then there's the water. Every bucket pulled up from the well is like a gamble. Some days the water is clear, other days it's murky, carrying a metallic taste or the smell of mud. If there's firewood, people boil it. If not, they drink it straight. And then disease finds its way into every sip: dysentery, typhoid, cholera. It doesn't take much. Just 1 cup of contaminated water can leave an entire family writhing in agony for days. Here, water isn't always a savior. Sometimes it's a silent betrayer. When sickness arrives, you remember the town has a doctor. A small wooden room, a few jars of medicine on the table, a couple of dull scalpels, a small saw. Laudanum and opium syrup is the cure-all for headaches, toothaches, broken bones, insomnia. People believe in it because they have no other choice. Surgeries are performed without anesthesia, scalpels are not sterilized, and cloth bandages are rinsed in cold water and reused. Infection arrives as swiftly as a familiar guest, and not everyone survives to tell the tale. Night falls and a familiar sound echoes through the town. A dry, long, hacking cough, like a hammer striking rhythmically against the chest. They call it consumption, the disease that steals breath away bit by bit. Children face smallpox, diphtheria, sudden fevers, and rashes of blisters all over their bodies. Survivors bear scars for life, while many others never grow up. Pregnant women are also in a fragile gamble. Childbirth here, with no nurses, no clean rooms, is armed only with a few clumsy hands and a bit of luck. Many mothers don't make it, leaving a wailing newborn in a neighbor's arms. As you lie down on your straw mattress at night, pulling the thin blanket over your face, you hear the persistent cough from the next room, the faint groans echoing from down the street. You try to lull yourself to sleep with the sound of the wind howling outside, but in your heart, you know, the enemy in this West doesn't carry a gun, doesn't carry a knife. It is invisible, tiny, hidden in a drop of water, in a piece of dirty ice, in an unwashed hand. You close your eyes, letting your breath slow down, dreaming of a clear stream of water, a draft-proof house, a doctor who washes his hands before touching a wound. And you know very well, even the dream of cleanliness is a luxury here. When dawn breaks, the pale yellow light spills onto the town's main street, and you decide to step out of the cabin to face a different kind of danger, one more tangible and noisy. The dirt road is dusty, flanked by saloons, a blacksmith shop, and a few small stores with wooden roofs. But what you notice most isn't the sound of daily life, but the absence of true law. In the West, justice is as thin as a torn cloth, liable to be ripped apart at any moment. You step through the saloon doors. Inside, the dim yellow light of an oil lamp illuminates tables scarred with knife marks and cup rings. A few cowboys sit with their heads bowed, drinking a thick liquor, a concoction of impurities strong enough to burn the throat, but also to make them forget their weariness. The air is thick with the smell of tobacco smoke, sweat, and a latent tension. You know that just one wrong look, one misplaced word, and the entire room could erupt like a wildfire on the prairie. Here, guns are not for decoration. They hang heavy and ever ready on their hips. People tell many tales of romantic duels under the setting sun. The reality is different. Gunshots often ring out in dimly lit saloons when drunken eyes are bloodshot. There are no rules to protect you from a stray bullet. A small argument can turn into a murder in seconds. The sheriff, the keeper of order, is there, but his power is fragile. He usually has only a small office, a wooden desk, and a few hastily posted wanted posters. The territory is vast. A horse can ride all day and not cover it, and his forces are few. In many places, people don't wait for the sheriff. They form a lynch mob right under the big tree outside of town. Being accused of horse theft or murder, sometimes based on just a few words, is enough to have a noose tightened around a person's neck. Justice here is often swift, neat, and brutal. You hear stories of towns like Dodge City and Tombstone, which once passed laws banning firearms within the city limits. Visitors had to surrender their guns at the border. But not everyone complied, and the enforcement of this very law led to bloody confrontations like the one at the OK Corral. In the West, even when people try to maintain order, violence seeps in, like weeds growing through cracks in the pavement. Night falls and the town sinks into a fragile silence. You lie on your straw mattress, listening to the distant sound of hooves on the dirt road, then the sharp slam of the saloon door. You don't know if someone won't be coming home tonight. Here, violence is not a sudden storm, but more like an underground river, flowing silently beneath your feet, ready to surge and sweep everything away at any moment. You pull the blanket up, close your eyes, and tell yourself to breathe, slowly, very slowly, as if the gunshot you just heard was only a distant echo in a dream. But in your heart, you still know. In this West, survival depends not only on health or food, but also on a fragile piece of luck. The luck of not being in the wrong place when justice disappears and violence speaks in its stead, and you suddenly realize that even arriving in this makeshift town was a journey filled with violence and loss. Just when you think you've grown accustomed to the smell of horse manure and the sudden gunshots, another haunting memory emerges: the endless trails. This was where hundreds of thousands of migrants wagered their lives, loading their families, possessions, and dreams onto rickety covered wagons and heading west. You imagine the early morning, dew still clinging to the grass, the line of wagons trudging along, wooden wheels creaking, cattle breathing heavily. There is no asphalt, no concrete bridges, only dirt, gravel, deep rivers, and steep mountains. Every step is a reminder. We might never make it. Accidents are a constant companion. A wagon overturns on a slope, a wheel breaks, a person falls, a bone fractures. Sometimes just a slip while fording a river is enough for the swift current to sweep away both person and wagon. Children scream, mothers clutch their babies tightly, all helpless as they watch the water swallow everything. There are no rescue teams, no safety ropes, only hands clinging to each other and the fragile hope that this time they will make it through. But the biggest killer is not floods or overturned wagons, it is disease. On the trail, you hear a persistent, dry cough, and then one morning, someone no longer gets up. Cholera sweeps through the wagon train like a poisonous wind. A handful of seemingly harmless water can bring a whole family down in a matter of days. People start digging graves along the path, each marked with only a hastily made wooden cross with no clear name. The entire trail becomes known as the longest cemetery in America. Amidst the sorrow, there are still moments of warmth. Children still laugh as they chase each other through fields of grass taller than their heads. Someone plays a fiddle as night falls, the flickering campfire illuminating tired but hopeful faces. People share the last pieces of dried meat, the remaining biscuits, then close their eyes and sleep right on the ground, next to the wheels that have been turning all day long. For you, a participant, every step on that trail feels like walking a tightrope over a chasm. With each passing day, you breathe a sigh of relief to still be alive. With each person who falls, you shudder, wondering when your turn will come. But when the sun sets, dyeing the horizon red, a glimmer of faith still flickers in your heart. Somewhere out there, there is a promised land, a place where all of today's hardships will become the past. You lie down next to the wooden wheel, listening to the wind sweep across the vast prairie, to the breathing of the horses, the chirping of insects. In your dreams, you see yourself having arrived, with a sturdy roof over your head, a green vegetable garden, a well of clear water. But when you open your eyes, all that's before you is the long, hazy road, full of dust and the silent shadows of graves. And so you walk on, because in the West, you can only move forward. You are never allowed to turn back. Finally, when the journey ends and you've settled on a piece of land, you understand that the battle never stopped. It only changed its form. When the sun is high in the sky, you look around the vast land and see a clear truth. Here, survival is bought with relentless labor. Every person, every profession, is bound to their work like an invisible rope. Not working means starving. Not striving means being left behind. You might imagine a cowboy riding into a red sunset, but the reality is far different. They wake up before dawn, driving huge herds of cattle across prairies, through rivers, through mud. Outside, the sun has not yet risen, but you can hear the howling wind, the creaking of the window, and the clatter of horse hooves somewhere on the dirt road. A new day begins, a day you might not finish in one piece. They often called this the Promised Land, but the truth is, this land is more like an endless test. It doesn't care where you came from, whether you are rich or poor, gentle or fierce. All must obey a single law. The weak, the slow, the unlucky, they will not survive. But still, you must wake up. You must drag that weary body to its feet. In the West, the mere act of waking up alive is already a gift. And that gift forces you to act. You slowly pull back the torn blanket, push yourself up from the straw mattress and drag your bare feet across the cold wooden floor. When you open the creaky door and step outside, the harshness of this land immediately hits you. Not from the barrel of a robber's gun, but from a much more silent and relentless enemy. All day, the smell of cattle manure, sweat, and dust clings to their clothes. A sudden thunderstorm is enough to spook the herd, causing a stampede that tramples anything in its path. Many cowboys lost their lives, not to a bullet, but to the very cattle that were their livelihood. A $30 monthly salary is only enough to buy a few trinkets, not enough to trade for a life of ease. If you don't become a cowboy, you might choose to go down into the mines. But stepping into the dark shaft is like stepping into the belly of a giant beast. The clang of pickaxes, the damp smell, the fine dust seeping into your lungs. People dream of gold and silver, but most only find rock, dirt, and disease. A tunnel can collapse at any moment, dynamite can detonate prematurely, and poisonous gas can fill the air with no time to escape. Some die instantly, others cough up blood until they slowly fade away. Their deaths are as silent as the darkness that surrounds them. Far from town, you see small houses made of sod houses. The thick walls protect against the wind, but they are also home to mice, snakes, and insects. The farmer wakes at the crack of dawn, his hands gripping a hoe, striking the hard, dry earth, hoping that the seeds he sows will sprout. But crops here are incredibly fragile. A drought and the whole prairie burns dry. A day of locusts blackening the sky, and everything disappears in a matter of hours. People stand silently, their eyes red, but there's nothing more they can do. Loneliness is also an enemy. In the middle of the vast prairie, a long winter covered in white snow can leave families almost completely cut off from the world. No neighbors visiting, no laughter, only the howling wind and the small fire in the hearth. They call it prairie madness, the thing that slowly wears down the mind in the silence. As dusk falls, the cowboy rests his back against his saddle. The miner crawls out of the dark shaft. The farmer puts down his hoe beside the barren patch of land. Everyone is too tired to even dream. You lie on your straw mattress, listening to the chirping of insects, the wind whistling through the cracks in the planks. And you understand, in the West, labor isn't just a job, it's a silent prayer. People work not to get rich, but to ask for one more day of life. You close your eyes, breathe slowly, letting the wind, the smell of the earth, and the scent of the kitchen, smoke become a lullaby. In your dreams, you see a day when the fields are full of grain, the mines sparkle with gold, and the cattle graze peacefully. But when you open your eyes, there is only labor and dust. And you carry on, because here, to stop is to be left behind. In the midst of that ruthless cycle of labor, as you walk past the dilapidated sod houses, the sound of a crying child drifts out from within, mixed with the sigh of a mother. You realize that there are those who bear even heavier burdens than the men out in the fields. In the West, women and children are not supporting characters in the story of survival. They are the very heart of its silent sacrifices. You see a woman hunched over a well, her calloused hands pulling up a heavy bucket of water. Nearby, her husband is still in the field, driving his hoe into the rock-hard soil. When her husband is away, she is a mother, a worker, and a soldier defending the home. She chops wood, feeds the livestock, mends clothes, watches the children, and still has to worry about the crops. The wind whips her hair into a mess. Her face is sunburnt, but her eyes are still bright, as if her gaze is the only fire keeping the family standing. Women did not always have rights. The laws in many places treated them as their husbands' shadows. But on this frontier, circumstances forced them to be stronger than the law. They ran farms when their husbands died, taught children in a single rickety wooden classroom, and even opened inns to earn a small income. In some places, a woman was the only one who could read and write, becoming the link that connected the community to the distant world outside. The laughter of children still rings out, but it is quickly drowned out by labor. At 6 or 7 years old, they already know how to hold a hoe, herd livestock, and gather firewood. The school, if there is one, is just a single wooden room with makeshift desks and benches and a chalk-smeared blackboard. The teacher, often a woman from the town, teaches just enough literacy to write a name and read the Bible. Not every child makes it to class. Many have to stay home to work, and many others do not survive the fevers and epidemics. The child mortality rate is so high that every newborn's cry is accompanied by a trembling prayer. And yet, in the long nights, you can still hear a soft song. A mother lulling her child to sleep, her voice fragile yet resilient, rising above the howling wind outside. Children still play simple games with pebbles and sticks. In their eyes, a dusty yard can be transformed into a fairy tale world. You realize that it is the women and children who have turned this harsh West into a place with human warmth. Without them, this land would be just a desert of guns, sweat, and dust. As night falls, you see a mother holding her child tight under a straw blanket. Her heart beats slowly, steadily, like a lullaby, and you too breathe slowly, letting that heartbeat carry you into sleep. In your dreams, the West is no longer a place of poverty and violence, but becomes a home, because there you find a gentle hand, the sound of a child, and a hope that smolders through the generations. As dawn breaks, you are awakened in the town, not just by the crowing of a rooster, but by the chaotic sounds from the street. Voices intermingle, many with strange accents in many different languages. You realize your small home is just a tiny dot in a larger, more complex picture. The West is not just the land of cowboys and miners. It is a place where tens of thousands of people from all over the world have converged, each bringing their hopes, their fears, and their conflicts. You walk past the railroad construction site. There, gaunt men from China are bent over, digging earth, blasting rock, and carrying stones. Sweat streams down their sun-tanned faces. They speak to each other in their native tongue, quick and clipped, amidst the clang of hammers. Beside them, Irishmen work while softly singing songs of their distant homeland. In the town saloon, you see a Mexican man mixing broken English with Spanish as he bargains for a saddle. Further on, a black family, newly freed from slavery, is trying to build the first home of their free lives. All of them, however different, share one desire: to hold on, to find a piece of land, to get some work, to secure a tomorrow for themselves. But people have never found it easy to live peacefully when packed too closely together. Differences in language, skin color, and religion soon become excuses for suspicion and conflict. The Chinese are often looked down upon, paid low wages for hard labor, and even driven out when jobs become scarce. Mexicans and black people are forbidden from entering white saloons or must sit in segregated areas. Even families who immigrated from Europe, differing only by their region of origin, are quick to harbor resentment. Sometimes a single false rumor is enough to set the whole town on edge. A theft, a fight, is immediately blamed on the different group. And justice, already fragile, rarely sides with the powerless. Amidst these new arrivals, you cannot miss the presence of the native tribes, the Sioux, the Cheyenne, the Apache. They were once the masters of these prairies and rivers, but are now herded onto reservations, losing their land, their hunting grounds, and their right to live as their ancestors did. Their children are taken to boarding schools where their hair is cut. They are forced into uniforms and taught a foreign language. They are taught to forget their real names, to forget the dances and songs of their people. Every step forward for the new settlers is another wound for the native people. And that conflict, whether simmering or erupting, leaves behind deaths that are never fully told. And yet, when night falls, that picture softens. From a small sod house, you hear the sound of an Irish fiddle, mingling with a faint song in Chinese, interspersed with the rhythmic clapping of black hands. On the porch, a Mexican child and a white child are still playing a game of throwing stones, their laughter ringing out as if the world had no borders at all. You lie down, listening to these sounds blend together, then slowly fade into the wind. And you understand that the West is both a harsh place of division and a strange land where people, despite their differences, still find each other in small, fleeting moments. You sigh slowly, letting your consciousness drift away with the fiddle, the songs, and the children's laughter. In that fragile sleep, the West is no longer a place of conflict, but becomes a multicolored tapestry, tangled yet still full of humanity. As you sit leaning against the fireplace, listening to the wind howl through the cracks in the wooden door, a thought comes to you. The image of the West you've heard about from cheap novels and rumors back east is so different from the place you are now living. Before you lies not a lush green garden, nor the cheerful chirping of birds, but an endless vast emptiness. The prairie stretches on, the wind whips up dust, and the cold, dim morning light covers the cracked earth. There are no fences, no asphalt roads, only the immense sky and land and you, a tiny, lost human being. The weather here is like a cruel joke. In the winter, the temperature can drop to dozens of degrees below 0 Celsius. In the drafty wooden cabin, the weak fire in the hearth is no match for the skin-cutting cold. People wrap themselves in whatever they can. Itchy woolen blankets, leather coats, old burlap sacks. Yet they still shiver, their teeth chattering. There are nights when you know for sure that if the fire goes out, the whole family will freeze to death before morning. Then summer arrives. The sun burns like fire. The earth cracks into large patches like giant wounds. Water evaporates so quickly that a well damp in the morning is dry by the afternoon. They call this the land of legends, where dashing cowboys ride into the sunset, where justice requires only a gun and a steady gaze. But the reality you are witnessing does not sparkle like that. In the stories, the cowboy is a free-roaming wanderer, galloping across endless prairies, his cape fluttering, his gun ever ready at his side. The western town is depicted as a vibrant scene, where duels are fought fairly under the bright sun, ending with a lightning-fast draw. There, evil is always punished, good always survives, and the hero walks away to the cheers of the crowd. But when you open your eyes here, there are no cheers, only dust in your teeth, the smell of horse manure, and the musty scent of sweat. A duel is actually just a sudden gunshot in a dark saloon when drunken hands are shaking. There are no fair play rules, no warnings. The one who falls sometimes dies for nothing more than a wrong look, a misplaced word. The real-life cowboy is not a romantic wanderer. He sleeps outdoors, eats dry beans, drinks murky water, his back aching after long days of herding cattle. The miner lives in a dark shaft, coughing until there is blood in his phlegm. The farmer plows earth as hard as rock, losing his crops to locusts or drought. This is the reality, unromantic without a halo of glory. You ask yourself, why, amidst such hardship, do people create such dazzling legends? Perhaps because they need a beautiful story to tell after a hard day's work. Perhaps because in the West, hope needs to be inflated to be strong enough to lead people forward. And perhaps because people, everywhere and always, want to believe that in the darkness, a hero will rise on their behalf to do what they cannot. As night returns, you lie down, listening to the wind tapping gently on the wooden walls, and close your eyes. In your dream, you become a character from a dime novel. Strong, indomitable, a confident smile under a wide-brimmed hat. But when you wake up, all that remains are calloused hands, dark circles under your eyes, and dust on your clothes. Legend and reality coexist like two blankets covering the West. One is soft to lull people into dreams. The other is rough to remind them that survival itself is the greatest miracle. You sigh softly, letting sleep pull you further away, to a place where the line between dream and reality dissolves like kitchen smoke fading into the night. A long day has finally come to an end. You sit silently by the flickering fire in the rickety wooden cabin, listening to the wind howl outside the window, the smell of smoke still lingering in the air. In your mind, a series of images from the day replays. Breakfast of bland beans, the smell of the outhouse, the sudden gunshot in the saloon, the dusty trail, hands cracked from hoeing the earth, and the rare smile of a child amidst poverty. It all blends into a somber, slow, heavy symphony, but one with its own melody. In the West, just surviving until sunset is a victory. You have overcome hunger, cold, dust, violence, and disease. You have witnessed the glimmers of hope in the eyes of women and children, heard the small songs that rise above the harshness. And you suddenly understand that the miracle here is not in gold or guns, but in the very ability of people to cling to every breath, every moment, to continue. Legends may embroider the West with crimson sunsets and heroic horsemen. The reality is different, full of mud, sweat, and tears, but also containing extraordinary endurance. Amidst all that suffering, survival becomes the most precious, most simple thing. You lie down on the straw mattress, pulling the worn blanket over you. The shrieking of the wind through the cracks now sounds like a lullaby. You breathe slowly, letting your heartbeat merge with the silence of the night. And in that fragile moment, you realize, as long as you are alive to greet a new day, you are already a victor in this wild West. Let your eyelids grow heavy. Let sleep descend like a thin layer of dust on a distant trail. Outside, the world is still harsh, but in your dreams, you can be at peace. Tomorrow, whatever it may bring, you have already lived a full day. And in the West, that alone is a miracle. My dear friend, today's journey has been long, and you have walked with me through that harsh West. Now let all your worries fall away. Let your breath become slow and steady. Close your eyes. You deserve a peaceful, deep, and sweet sleep. Sleep well, and I will see you in the next story. People have to line up for every bucket of murky water, filtering it through cloth, praying it isn't contaminated. There is no running water, no air conditioning, only sweat, dust, and the droning of insects. And sometimes nature doesn't wait for a new season to strike. You might see a clear sky at noon, but just a few hours later, dark clouds roll in, thunder roars, and rain pours down like a waterfall, turning dirt roads into muddy quagmires. Or worse, a sudden tornado, sweeping roofs, livestock, and even people into the air. There are no warnings on TV, no forecast maps, only word-of-mouth experience, and anxious eyes looking up at the sky. The settlers who came to the West were shocked when they first encountered this kind of weather. Families who left the green East, accustomed to steady rain and fertile soil, fell in their very first year. Not for lack of determination, but because nature here gave them no chance. For you, every gust of wind carries a reminder. Here, you are just a passerby. The true masters are the wind, the ice, the sun, and the storm. In the cabin, every time you hear the wind shriek, you pull the blanket closer and let out a long sigh. Your breathing slows, heavy, like the very lullaby of this land. A rhythm both gentle and harsh, both lulling and threatening. The threat in that wind herds you back inside, where a bit of warmth from last night still flickers. You sit down by the soot-darkened cast-iron stove, because after the battle with the cold, your body needs fuel to survive, even if that fuel is anything but pleasant. Before you is a simple breakfast, a pot of beans stewed from the night before, stiff and bland. People call it food, but it's really more like fuel to keep the body moving for another day. A hard biscuit, the infamous hardtack, sits beside it. When you tap it with your finger, a dry thud echoes. Your teeth will have to fight to break it, and victory is not always yours. Some people joke, this biscuit could be used to build a house, but unfortunately, you still have to chew it to live. Salted meat hangs from the rafters, aged for a long time. A thin slice is salty enough to sting. It doesn't make the meal taste better, it just makes you drink more water. A luxury the whole town sometimes has, to share bucket by bucket. That water is often murky, carrying the smell of mud, sometimes even a metallic taste. Many families don't boil it. Firewood is too precious to waste. They drink it straight, and then a few days later, their stomachs cramp, and they suffer from debilitating diarrhea. People whisper the names of the illnesses: dysentery, typhoid, cholera. Names like invisible blades that kill in droves without a single gunshot. Fresh fruits and vegetables are as rare as a miracle. If you're lucky, a neighbor brings over a basket of red apples, and your whole family's eyes light up like children on a holiday. Biting into the crisp apple, the sweet juice running down your throat is like a gentle lullaby. But only for a moment, because soon enough, the apples will bruise, the vegetables will rot, and you'll be back to beans, biscuits, and salted meat. What's more dangerous than hunger is the lack of vitamins, a concept no one understood well back then. People only knew that their teeth were loose, their gums bled, and bruises took a long time to fade. They called it weakness, exhaustion, not knowing that with every daily meal, their bodies were screaming for something to fight back with. Mothers would whisper age-old spells to their children. Water must be boiled, beans must be simmered, meat must be cooked through, jars must be sealed, flies must be shooed away. It wasn't always possible, but it was a fragile charm in this land of sickness. At noon, as the sun beats down on the dirt yard, you sit under the porch, a hot bowl of beans in your hands. Flies buzz persistently, landing on the rim of the bowl, on your lips, on your hands. You wave them away, but they come right back. You learn to eat faster than the flies, and sometimes survival is as simple as that, a race against a tiny insect. On a rare day, the family gets a meal of fresh greens, or a sour soup with a bit of lemon brought from afar. That faint sour taste, when it touches your tongue, feels like opening a door to a memory of healthy living you thought you'd forgotten. That night, everyone sleeps more deeply than usual, as if their stomachs were soothed by hope. You lean your back against the wooden wall, listening to the wind howl outside. Every bite of food that day has passed down your throat like a calculation. Energy, water, salt, the risk of a stomachache, the amount of firewood left, the hours of labor in the afternoon. Food is never just food. It's a fragile lottery ticket between life and death. In the final moment before your eyes close, you imagine a glass of water so clear you could see the stars in it, a bowl of sweet green vegetables without the smell of flies. In this harsh West, dreaming is the only spice that costs nothing, causes no stomach aches, and sometimes is the only thing that helps you sleep peacefully for one more night. When the empty bowl is set down, you realize that what makes life in the West so unpleasant isn't just the hunger, but the very environment around you. The pungent, musty smell from behind the house seeps in again, a persistent reminder of the makeshift and dirty conditions. That's the place they call the outhouse, in reality, just a pit in the ground, crudely covered with a few wooden planks. In the summer, flies buzz like an endless orchestra, clinging to everything, including your skin.